The snow fell like broken pieces of glass. Each snowflake made it hard to see more than a few feet through the frozen swamp where SEAL Team Bravo was fighting to stay alive. Master Chief Jake Dalton pressed his body against a frozen wall of dirt. His rifle barrel was still hot, even though the freezing cold turned his breath into tiny ice crystals. The rocket that had just torn apart the tree branches above them left his ears ringing. There was a high-pitched sound that mixed with a loud cracking noise of bullets flying toward them. They were outnumbered, music, 10 to 1, maybe even more. The mission had seemed simple when they read about it. Get Dr. Helena Voss out safely. She was a scientist who worked on secret codes, and her work was so important that 3 countries wanted her dead and 2 more wanted her alive. But the information they received had missed some big things. They did not know about the stronger building, the extra power machines, and the quick response team that had turned their easy rescue into a running gun battle through land that wanted to kill them just as much as the enemy did. Then the shock came. It was not the wild spray of machine gun bullets or the curved path of grenades. This was different. A single crack that cut through all the noise with perfect aim. Dalton watched through the swirling snow as the enemy commander, a man who had been giving orders from a safe spot 200 yards away, fell down like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Dalton's head turned quickly as he looked at his scattered team. Who fired that shot? Only static answered him. His 6 remaining soldiers were trapped in a water ditch, keeping their heads low and shooting back in short bursts. None of them could see that spot. None of them could have made that shot in these conditions. The wind was blowing at 40 knots. The snow made it impossible to see anything. The temperature was cold enough to change how bullets fly in ways that needed math most snipers could not do even in perfect conditions, let alone while being shot at. Chief, the angle is wrong. Petty Officer Marcus Webb's voice came through the radio with crackling sounds. That shot came from behind us. We do not have anyone there. Dalton felt something cold settle in his chest, and it had nothing to do with the weather. He had been doing this work for 17 years. He knew the difference between lucky shots and impossible ones. He knew the shooting style of every sniper he had ever worked with. He could read their style and how they placed their shots like another person might read handwriting. This shot had a style he thought he would never see again. Raven, he whispered, the word making frost in the air. 3 years ago, Lieutenant Nadia Morova had been the best sniper Dalton had ever worked with, and he had worked with the best. They had called her Shadow Raven, partly because she seemed to appear out of nowhere, partly because of her last name, mostly because once she had you in her sights, you were already dead. She had saved his life twice. The first time was in Kandahar, when she had cleared a room from 700 meters away, shooting enemies through window frames with shots that seemed impossible. The second time was in the Hindu Kush Mountains when she had covered their escape for 6 hours straight. Her rifle sang its deadly song until the rescue helicopters finally came. The third time, she had not made it out. The mission had gone wrong in the mountains during a blinding snowstorm just like this one. Their team had been found out and surrounded. They were running low on bullets. Raven had taken a spot on an open ridge to give them covering fire while they escaped through a narrow valley. She had held that spot until they got away. Her radio went silent just as the enemy closed in on her. They had searched for 3 days when the weather got better. They found blood, empty bullet casings, and signs of a fierce last fight, but no body. The mountains had taken her, or so they told themselves. The official papers said she was missing and probably dead. Dalton had gone to her memorial service. He had accepted the folded flag for her team. He had carried the weight of leaving her behind ever since. Only one person could make the shot he had just seen. The problem was that person was supposed to be dead. Chief, we need to move. Webb's urgent voice cut through his memories. They are coming around on both sides. We are about to be caught in the middle. Dalton forced himself back to the present moment. 6 men under his command. 1 civilian scientist who was breathing way too fast in the middle of their group, and enemies coming from 3 sides. The swamp stretched out before them. It was a dangerous maze of frozen pools, thin ice, and deep mud that would swallow a man whole if he stepped in the wrong place. We go through the swamp, Dalton decided. Single file, 5 meters apart. Watch where I step and step exactly where I do. Chief, that is crazy. Petty Officer Serachin argued. The ice will not hold, and we will be out in the open. We are dead if we stay here. At least in the swamp, we control what happens to us. He switched to the team radio channel. All units, fall back to me. We are going through the frozen section, heading northeast. As they got ready to move, another shot rang out. This one took down the heavy weapons guy who had been setting up a big machine gun on their east side. The shot came from a different angle than the first one. Whoever was out there was moving faster than should be possible in this land. Then Dalton's radio crackled with a signal he had not heard in 3 years. It was an old secret code, one that had been stopped when the person who used it was declared dead. The signal was weak, but the pattern was clear. 3 short bursts, 2 long, 1 short. A path marker. His hand shook a little as he pulled out his GPS device. The signal was showing them a specific path through the swamp. It avoided the obvious routes where traps would be waiting. It showed safe ice, solid ground, and natural hiding spots. No one could have this information without watching from a high spot in real time. Is someone guiding us? Dr. Voss asked. Her scientific brain was stronger than her fear for a moment. Maybe, Dalton replied, his throat tight. Everyone, we follow this route exactly. No changes. They moved into the swamp. Each step was a careful risk. The ice creaked under their weight, but held. Chen went through first with a rope tied to her body, testing each section before the others followed. The snow kept falling. It gave them cover, but also made them confused about where they were. Without the signal guiding them, they would have been lost in minutes. Behind them, the enemy's soldiers seemed confused. They were shooting at shadows and nothing. Every few minutes, another shot would echo and another enemy soldier would fall. Not random targets. Each one was someone directing the chase, someone organizing the search. Their chain of command was being taken apart piece by piece. Enemy behind us. Webb shouted suddenly. Dalton turned to see a 4-man enemy patrol coming out of the trees. They had somehow followed the team's trail, even though they had been careful. The enemies were spreading out and raising their weapons when a shot cracked through the frozen air. The lead chaser dropped. Then another shot, and the second man fell. The 2 left up for cover, but a third shot found one of them through a gap in the rocks he had hidden behind. The 4th man, showing more bravery than smarts, broke from cover and ran forward. He made it 3 steps before a final shot stopped him. 4 targets, for shots, for kills, all in under 10 seconds in blizzard conditions from a hidden spot. Dalton had seen Raven do exactly this kind of work before. She called it pruning, cutting away the branches of enemy command until the tree fell down on its own. Webb found the empty shell casings. They were 338 Lapua Magnum rounds, still warm enough that snow melted when it touched them. Raven's favorite type, loaded with her special settings. Chief, Chen said quietly, whoever is out there, they want us to live. But why not just talk to us? Dalton stared at the empty brass casing in his gloved hand. Because she only shows herself when she is completely sure we cannot survive without her. And we are not there yet. They had been moving for 2 hours when the enemy changed how they were fighting. Dalton heard the helicopters before he saw them. To me, 8 helicopters, probably carrying hunter teams trained to track people through dangerous land. The helicopters flew in wide circles, searching for body heat and movement. Thermal covers, Dalton ordered. Now. They pulled the emergency cold weather gear over their uniforms. It was made to hide body heat. It would give them some time, but not much. The helicopters had heat-sensing cameras, ground-scanning radar, and pilots who knew these mountains. One of the helicopters dropped a team of 6 men about a kilometer away, right on their planned path. The second helicopter circled above. Its door gunner was looking at the ground below. They were trapped. Thick ice behind them, open ground ahead, enemies on both sides, and an attack helicopter above. Dr. Voss looked at Dalton with wide eyes. This is it, is it not? This is where we die. Before Dalton could answer, the circling helicopter jerked hard. Smoke poured from an engine, and it started going down in an emergency landing, limping away behind the ridge. It was not a big hit. It was something careful and exact. Someone had damaged it just enough to make it leave the fight without killing the crew. The shot came from the North Ridge. Webb reported, looking through his scope. Jesus, that's got to be 1,800 meters through wind. That would knock a bird off course. The enemy team on the ground had heard it too. They were getting back together, moving toward where the shot came from with careful steps. Dalton watched them spread out, setting up overlapping shooting areas, using proper spacing. These were not beginners or local fighters. These were professionals, possibly special forces. Another shot. The front man dropped. The team scattered, but they were not running. They were angry now and committed. They had found their target, and they were going hunting. They are going after our guardian angel, Chin said. She knew they would, Dalton replied. She is buying us time. We need to use it. They pushed forward, moving as fast as they dared across the dangerous ice. Every few minutes, they would hear another shot echoing through the valley, followed by return fire. The enemy team was fighting someone, and whoever was, they were leading the hunters away from SEAL Team Bravo. They found the first clue an hour later. It was a hiding spot so perfectly hidden that Dalton almost walked past it. The snow around it had been carefully moved and then put back, but his trained eye caught the pattern. Inside the hiding spot, he found 3 empty casings, all 3 .38 Lapua. He also found something else. A small piece of fabric torn from a camouflage suit, attached to a branch pointing northeast. She is leaving us trail markers, Webb said. Leading us somewhere or leading them away, Chin said back. Dalton picked up the fabric. It was Atak's winter camouflage, a custom-made pattern. He had seen it before. He had even helped Raven design parts of it during long nights in base briefing rooms. She had been obsessed with hiding. She spent hours studying how light played on snow, the patterns of frozen plants, and the look of winter landscapes. Both, Dalton decided. She is doing both. Come on. The sun was setting. Not that they could see it through the snow and clouds, but the light was fading from gray to dark gray. Working at night in these conditions would be almost impossible, but they had no choice. The enemy was still hunting, still working together, even though they had lost people. Dalton's radio hissed with the old secret signal again. This time, the signal showed coordinates. A small cave system 2 kilometers northeast, partly hidden by a frozen waterfall. It would give them shelter, spots they could defend, and a chance to rest. They found it just as full darkness came. The cave entrance was exactly as marked. It was wide enough for one person to enter at a time, narrow enough to defend. Chun went in first with her rifle up, checking each part. All clear. They had just gotten everyone inside. They had just started setting up a defense when a figure appeared from the darkness outside. One moment, there was nothing but swirling snow. The next moment, someone was standing there, a ghost in winter camouflage, rifle held in a relaxed but ready position. You are late, a voice said. Female with an accent, touched with dark humor. I expected you 20 minutes ago. Dalton's weapon came up by habit. His mind would not accept what his eyes were seeing. Then the figure reached up and pulled back the hood of her camouflage suit, showing a face he thought he would never see again. Nadia Morova looked older than her 28 years. Her face was thinner, harder, marked by 3 years of surviving in these mountains. Her eyes held a coldness that had not been there before, the kind that came from too many nights alone, too many close calls, too many times choosing between impossible choices. But it was her. It was Raven. You died, Dalton said, his voice rough. We searched for days. The blood, the evidence. My blood, yes, Raven agreed, stepping fully into the cave. Also, for enemy soldiers' blood mixed together to make it look worse than it was. I was wounded, yes, but wounded and trapped is not the same as dead. She took her rifle off her shoulder. It was a Custom Accuracy International AXMC that had clearly been used a lot. May I sit? I have been moving for 16 hours straight, and I am not as young as I used to be. Dalton nodded without speaking. His team was staring, weapons half raised, not sure whether to celebrate or be suspicious. Dr. Voss looked completely lost, which made sense since she had no idea what was happening. Raven sat against a cave wall with a small sigh of relief. After I gave you covering fire 3 years ago, the enemy took over my spot. I was hit twice. I lost a lot of blood. I could not walk. They thought I was dead. I played dead very well. When they moved on, I crawled into a crack in the ice and waited for rescue that I knew would not come. We searched, Webb said, sounding defensive. I know. I heard your helicopters. But the crack was under an overhang, invisible from the air, and I could not risk moving. By the time I could move, you were gone. She shrugged. So I figured out myself. I took weapons from the dead. I found an old shepherd shelter. I survived the winter. That was 3 years ago. Chin said, why did you not come back? Why did you not signal for help? For the first time, Raven's expression changed, showing something soft beneath the hard outside. Because I was alive due to failure. I failed to hold the position long enough. I failed to stay in contact. I failed to escape with the team. In my country, in my old unit, failure like that has consequences. I thought perhaps it was better if Lieutenant Nadia Morova died in the mountains as a hero rather than return as a failure. Dalton felt something break inside his chest. You were not a failure. You saved us. All of us. Did I? Raven met his eyes. Or did I just delay your death to another day? That is the question I asked myself every night for the first year. Then I stopped asking questions and started surviving. These mountains are full of bad people doing bad things. I became very good at stopping them. You've been running solo missions for 3 years? Webb sounded like he could not believe it. Solo implies I had a choice, Raven corrected. I simply did what was in front of me. Enemy supply truck on the road? Stop it. Enemy command post in the valley? Remove the commanders. Enemy patrol near a village with regular people? Send them a different way. I did not plan to become a ghost in the mountains. I simply became one because that was what the situation needed. Dalton leaned forward. You could have signaled us at any time. Any military frequency. We would have come. Perhaps. Raven pulled out a thermos and took a long drink of what smelled like very strong tea. But I was useful here. More useful than I would be back in the system. Answering questions about how I survived. Going through interviews and mental health checks. Here I had purpose. And today, Dalton pressed, why show yourself now? Raven's eyes went cold again. Because today, you would die without me. All of you, including Dr. Voss, whose work is apparently important enough that people are willing to start a small war in these mountains. Today, me being here was the difference between you living and you dying. That math is simple enough even for me. Dr. Voss cleared her throat nervously. I am sorry, but who exactly are you? Someone who just saved your life 5 times. Raven replied without looking at her. You are welcome. She is the best sniper I have ever worked with, Dalton added. An old friend we thought we had lost. Best sniper you have worked with? Raven raised an eyebrow. That is not much of a compliment, Jakob. I am the best sniper you will ever work with. I am probably the best sniper most of your team will ever see. And tonight, I will prove it. How is that? Chin asked. Raven pulled out a tablet showing satellite pictures of the area. Because the people hunting you have brought in their command group. They're setting up a coordination center here. She pointed to a frozen lake 3 kilometers away. It is protected by about 40 soldiers, multiple vehicle-mounted weapons, and command staff who think they are beyond your reach. They are right, Webb said. We do not have the firepower to attack that position. You do not need to attack it, Raven said calmly. You need to create a distraction while I remove their leadership. With the command structure cut off, their forces will fall apart. Then you walk out through confusion while I cover your movement. Dalton studied the map. His tactical mind was already running through different plans. The distance from any spot where you can see them is over 2,000 meters. In these conditions, that is impossible. Raven smiled, and for a moment, he saw the younger woman who had sat in briefing rooms with him, the one who had laughed at bad jokes and shared terrible coffee. Yes, it is an impossible shot. Good thing only one person alive can make it. They moved out 2 hours later under complete darkness. The storm had gotten stronger, which was both good and bad. It gave them cover, but made every step dangerous. Raven led them to a ridge looking down at the frozen lake. She moved with a confidence that came from 3 years of knowing this land like the back of her hand. The enemy command center was exactly where she had marked it. Dalton counted 6 vehicles, multiple tents, and what looked like a generator-powered communication setup. Heat imaging showed about 50 people. The defensive ring was professional. They had overlapping shooting areas, moving patrols, and raised lookout posts. Your part is simple, Raven explained, setting up her rifle with practice speed. In 30 minutes, you make noise at the southern tree line. Nothing big, just enough to make them think you are testing their defenses. They will send more people to that area. They will shift their attention. That gives me my window. Window for what? Chin asked. Raven began making calculations in a worn notebook. The numbers and drawings looked like science equations mixed with magic. Command tent is here. Vehicle commander is here. Communications officer is here. I need to hit all 3 in order. Less than 15 seconds between shots. If I do this right, their command structure falls apart before they understand what is happening. At 2,000 meters in this wind at night, Webb shook his head. That is not a shot. That is a prayer. Then pray. I am good at praying, Raven replied. She settled into her shooting position, adjusting her rifle stand with tiny movements. 28 minutes now. Get moving. Dalton did not move. If this goes wrong, it will not. But if it does... Raven looked at him, and in the low light, he could see how hard the last 3 years had been on her. Jacob, I have been dead for 3 years already. If I fail tonight, nothing changes for me. But you, your team, you still have lives to live. So I will not fail. Now go create a distraction before I change my mind and shoot you myself for being slow. Dalton led his team down the ridge. They set up positions in the tree line, just as Raven had told them. Through his scope, he could see the command center clearly. Too clearly. Every feeling inside him screamed that this was crazy, that they were about to start something that would crush them. But he had learned to trust Raven's feelings. 3 years ago, she had saved them with her shooting. Tonight, if she was right, she would do it again. In position, he radioed on the old frequency. Understood. Raven's voice came back. On my signal, fire 3 rounds at the edge, northeast corner. Make them think you are testing their defenses. Do not actually hit anyone. I need them alert, not scared. Copy. And Jacob, whatever happens in the next 5 minutes, do not stop moving. I will find you. Mark. Dalton ordered the signal. Webb fired first. 3 careful shots that kicked up snow near the edge. The enemy response was immediate. Lights swung toward their position. Shouts in Russian. Vehicles starting their engines. The command center went from relaxed to high alert in seconds. Through his scope, Dalton watched the enemy commander come out of the tent, shouting orders. Other officers gathered around him, pointing toward the noise. The communications officer was speaking fast into a radio. The vehicle commander was climbing onto an armored vehicle, waving a map. Perfect targets. All grouped together. All focused on the wrong threat. Then Raven fired. The first shot took the vehicle commander in the chest just as he was pointing toward the trees. He dropped instantly. Before anyone could react, the second shot hit the communications officer, who had turned at the sound of the first hit. The third shot, the impossible one, found the enemy commander as he was diving for cover. It went through the gap between his armor plates. 3 shots, 3 kills, 3 seconds. But Raven was not done. A 4th shot broke the communications equipment, which sparked and died in a shower of electricity. A 5th shot hit the fuel tank of a vehicle, starting a fire that spread fast in the dry cold. A 6th shot took out a generator, making half the camp go dark. The command center fell into chaos. Soldiers ran in every direction, shouting orders that did not match. They were firing at shadows. No one was in charge. No one knew what to do. The careful discipline of professional force disappeared when faced with an invisible enemy who could reach out and kill them from impossible distances. Move, Dalton ordered his team. Now. They pulled back through the trees, moving fast and quiet. Behind them, the enemy was too busy with their own mess to chase them. Some were fighting the fires. Others were trying to get their radios working. A few were shooting at nothing, convinced they were being attacked from multiple directions. Dalton kept waiting for Raven to appear, but she did not. The old frequency stayed silent. They made it back to the cave, then past it, following the trail markers she had left them days ago. 2 hours of hard movement through the frozen swamp, and still no sign of her. "Chief," Chin said quietly, "what if she did not make it out?" "She made it," Dalton said with more confidence than he felt. "She always makes it." They reached the pickup point just as the sun was coming up. The storm had finally cleared, showing a landscape of beautiful frozen scenery. The helicopter was coming, 5 minutes away. Its engines were a welcome sound in the silence. Then a voice behind him said, "You are terrible at being quiet. I could hear you from 1 kilometer away." Dalton turned quickly to find Raven standing there. Her camouflage suit was covered in snow and ice. Her rifle was hanging across her back. She looked exhausted, running on nothing but willpower and adrenaline. "The shots," Dalton started, "were exactly where I aimed them," Raven finished. "You doubted me." "Never. But I worried." She smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the younger woman he had known. "Good. Someone should worry about me. I have not had that in a long time." The helicopter was landing now. Its spinning blades were kicking up snow. Dr. Voss was already moving toward it, eager to leave this frozen nightmare. The team was following, but Dalton held back, and Raven stood with him. "What now?" he asked. "You coming back?" Raven looked at the mountains, at the forest that had been her home and prison for 3 years. "If I come back, there will be questions and investigations. They will want to know how I survived, what I did, why I did not make contact. It will be complicated." "Life is complicated," Dalton said back, "but you do not have to face it alone. Not anymore." She turned to him, and he saw the battle behind her eyes. The part of her that wanted to return to normal life, to be part of something bigger than just surviving, was fighting with the part that had gotten used to being alone, that had become comfortable in the shadows. "If I come back," she said slowly, "it is on my terms. No medals, no parades, no attention. I work when needed. I disappear when not needed. I am still a ghost, but a ghost that chooses when to be seen." "I can arrange that," Dalton promised. "We have secret programs that would love someone with your skills and experience. Programs where asking questions about your past 3 years would be considered rude." Raven thought about this, then nodded. "Then I come back. But not because I was rescued. I come back because I choose to. That difference matters." "It matters," Dalton agreed. "Come on. That helicopter is not going to wait forever." They walked toward the helicopter together. Dalton and Raven, the Master Chief and his best sniper, alive against all odds. As they climbed aboard, Webb offered Raven a hand up. "Ma'am," he said, "that shot you made tonight, I have never seen anything like it." "You never will again," Raven replied, settling into a seat and immediately closing her eyes. "That is the point of being the best. If others could do it, I would not be special." Dalton sat next to her as the helicopter lifted off, leaving the frozen swamp behind. "For what it is worth," he said quietly, "I never stopped looking for you. In every briefing, every mission report, every intelligence file, I looked for signs that you were still alive." Raven opened one eye. "And now you found me. What will you do with me? Make sure you never have to survive alone again." She closed her eye again, but he saw the small smile at the corner of her mouth. "That is an acceptable answer. Now let me sleep. I have been awake for 3 years, and I am very tired." As the helicopter turned toward friendly land, Dalton looked out at the mountains below. Somewhere down there, in the frozen wasteland, was a spot where they had left Raven 3 years ago, where she had been declared dead, where she had become a ghost. But ghosts did not stay dead. Not when they had promises to keep, skills to use, and people who refused to give up on them. Who fired that shot? Webb asked, looking at Raven with something like amazement. Dalton smiled. Only one person alive could make it, and now we know she is still here. 6 months later, a secret file landed on a desk in a nameless office in a building that officially did not exist. The file was thin. It contained only the most important information. Designation, Raven. Specialty, precision elimination. Availability, when required. Location, unknown. A hand reached for file, opened it, read what was inside, then closed it and placed it in a secure drawer. It sat right next to files marked Kraken, Phantom, Widow, and a dozen other code names for operators who existed in the spaces between official records. The owner of that hand was a woman whose own name had been secret for so long that she sometimes forgot it herself. She smiled slightly. Another ghost for the collection. Another impossible operator for impossible missions. She pressed a button on her desk. File Raven is active. Deep cover, on-call status. Authorization level, black. Yes, ma'am, a voice responded. Any limits on when she could be used? The woman thought about this. According to the file, Raven had spent 3 years surviving in enemy land, running solo missions, and had just made a series of shots that the experts were calling impossible. Limits seemed wrong. None, she decided. If we are calling her, it means we are out of options. Let her work however she works best. Understood. One last thing. Should we tell her commanding officer when she is called back to duty? The woman looked at a note attached to the file. It was handwritten in a firm, clear style. She is not mine to command. She chooses her missions. I simply provide opportunities. Dalton. No, the woman said. I do not think that will be necessary. Raven knows when she is needed. She will appear when the time is right. The file went into the drawer. The drawer locked. And somewhere in the world, in a place no one could guess, a woman in winter camouflage was preparing for the next impossible shot. Because that is what ghosts do. They wait in the shadows until they are needed. And when they are needed, they do not miss. Not ever. Not Raven.